It's January 21st, 2022. I'm Sonatina, and this is Linguistics You Can Use. Welcome to the second season premiere, You Crafty Communicator. Can you believe it? I came back in January, like I said I would, back in October when I was last here. I did get sidetracked from video production due to various, life sustaining projects. Despair not, the work is happening. It's just, going a little bit more slowly than we all, you know, we are always moving more slowly than maybe we all want. But we are here. So, what are we doing here today? Well, the sign on top of my head might give you an indication that maybe we're going to be a little bit active today in terms of the conversation. Actually, I'm not going to wear this the whole thing. I just thought I'd give a little bit of a personal celebration to, you know, promising myself that I would do something and then do with it. Like this, coming back in January for my live stream, which I very much enjoy doing. So, here we are. We begin our discussion of the year with the internal world. So, one of the big projects that I was working on over the last few months was redesigning my website. And a lot of that comes with the shift of my focus that I was working on last year that you were somewhat a part of on this live stream journey, which is now combining my linguistics teaching with autistic advocacy. And those two subjects align very well because I am an autistic linguist. And so just by the very nature of me talking about linguistics, I'm kind of, doing all those things already. But the reason that I am specifically focusing on that is because I was a bit floundering in my professional mindset, as it were. And I was trying to figure out what it was about my teaching, my lessons, you know, my focus that was not drawing me in. I love language. I've always loved language. I was, inventing languages when I was a kid. And there was, just, I was always fascinated by the sounds of other languages and just this concept that there was like, sounds that meant the same thing, kind of, but not. And anyway, that has always been a focus of mine. And yet, teaching language, teaching English was never something that really served me necessarily. I appreciated the work that I was doing with my students because in my work over the last 5 years or so, and with the amount of students that I was working with, so many of them have told me that they are glad that I gave them a perspective that they didn't expect from language classes. And a lot of that perspective came from the way they approached language learning. So I went into this field very clear on the kind of curriculum that I was developing, sound focused, right? I've always been very sound forward in my language stuff. And so it just made sense for me to share that with others, for others who might also be more audioly inclined than, visually inclined. And so I was really glad that I got to work with these, people from around the world, professionals, students. I worked with a kid once, under 18, somebody, and it was, it was very clear that that was not my audience. I love you if you're, here and you're is still in high school. You're great. Glad. You're welcome here. Just, my focus tends to be more on people who are in the world already and are focused on, you know, their personal goals that they can do, as it were. So since you turn 18, it's game on. But what I was going to say, the tangents, if you've been here with me and you've appreciated some of my former live streams, the tangents. They happen. They come and go. So yeah, one of the things that it was really wonderful to explore, right, with my students, with people from around the world, was how our perception of a single word would impact a conversation, right? Because people learn often through dictionaries, right? And dictionaries, give many versions or many definitions of a single word. But our minds are really bad at absorbing all of that information at once. And so we don't often get the full picture of what a word can be until we encounter it with somebody else who has sort of absorbed a different definition as their primary mode of engaging with that word. So just, just discussing, in these lessons one-on-one, these students realized that their understanding of trying to learn English or, be fluent English speakers was framed in a way that made them think they had to sound exactly like an imaginary perfect English speaker, right? And most people who are learning languages in our current day have this perception because, historical quirks and all that stuff. Okay, we're back. Oh, Discord. Not Discord. OBS. I'm trying. We're trying. We're technical hiccups. We're going. We're working. So, yeah, if you are interested in hearing more about the history of that, let me know, and I will perhaps address it in a future thing. But today, I wanted to mostly talk about the current ideas, right? How we, in our day-to-day lives, right, create these meanings and how they influence our, lived experience in the world. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to go ahead and grab my coffee, which is cooling over on the counter yon, and I shall see you in a minute. All right, welcome back. Oh, a nice little breather for a moment. One of the things that I was working on for myself um, is to relax a little bit, right, about the pressure I was having for myself to perform at a certain level for expectations that nobody told me they had, right? If anything, the people that were giving me comments were often much more complimentary about things that I thought weren't that interesting about these streams. And so I thought, instead of ignoring the words that people tell me, why don't I listen when people say that they enjoy something, right? Focus on the good that people share, right? Criticism is always important. I think it's good to evaluate what was and see how you can improve. Sometimes the improvement isn't necessary though, right? Like, yeah, I could probably have better lighting in here. I should probably have turned on a light when I was over there grabbing my coffee, but you can see me. And audio is more important anyway. Most of you are probably listening to this anyway. So we're not going to focus on the things that could be better. We're going to focus on the things that are good, which one of those things is, hope you can hear me. All right, so let's see. So one of the things that that I was going to go over, or that I wanted to really delve into today, was this idea of perception, right? The internal world and how we create our reality out of the language that we have, that we use, both, with others and with ourselves, right? And so, since it's always good to start, right, with the self in terms of, understanding. And because if you don't know really, like, if you don't have a good understanding of your view of the situation, it's challenging to have a discussion with others because they are, you're not sure if they have a firm understanding even. And so I tend to find it better to really kind of figure out what it is about a subject that what do I really think about something, so that when I am faced with a situation, it then is kind of easier for me to not be bowled over by somebody else, whether or not they are firm in their, definition of that. It gives me a place to have more of a conversation, be a participant, than a just an observer in the world, as it were. And I'm a participant. I like very much engaging, and not everybody is as engaging externally, right? I know some people who are very considerate in their thoughts when they're engaging with others. They just don't externalize that, like through words, speaking, all of those things. And then when they maybe come back in a bit and they have processed things internally, they may share the things that they were considering from, when you were sharing your perspective. So we don't have to be directly, externally engaged to be considerate of the world around us. We don't want to let ourselves, though, be trapped in our own world and not let ourselves see that other people do exist. Other people's perspectives do matter. And they are as, important to them as yours is to you, as mine is to me. So that's why I think, right, this evaluation, this internal evaluation of what you think about a subject is so valuable. And the question that I thought I would discuss this week actually comes from one of my autistic groups I belong to in Seattle, called Square Pegs. Now, we are a generally like an open meetup group, and it's open to everybody, right? We're based in the Northwest. We're based in Seattle generally. Um, but we have people from around the world now joining us in our online meetings, and it's so wonderful. And, we decided that we liked hanging out with each other so much. A Discord started to become popular, and a few people, me included, started to, help organize and, create it as a nice place to hang out with your fellow autistic, folks. And one of the best things about this community is we ask each other questions, right? Because a lot of times we've noticed throughout our lives, our perspective isn't really requested, right? We want to share our perspective, but sometimes our mode of communicating with others is so different that it comes across as us not wanting to be involved. So this is a really wonderful space where, anybody in the group can just ask a question and everybody else can answer it and have a really wonderful conversation about a topic for a day. And if it's something that people want to like keep going on, right, then they can, keep going on it in a different channel, and it's a really fun space. So the question that came up this week that I was like super excited that came up was, how do you know you're actually friends with somebody? This question haunted me my entire life. And there's a good reason, right, that one of our group members asked this. It's because we all sort of had this experience in our lives about being very unsure about what friendship meant to the other person. And a lot of that, I think, comes from not being sure what friendship means to us. And so the question went on. More specifically, what does it take for you to refer to someone as your friend? How do you feel that it's mutual? Like they would refer to you as their friend too. And yeah, this question just like hit me because it made me really consider that word friend, right? And since my brain is kind of like, how can I make this about linguistics? That's where it went. So I went on a huge journey, right? Navigating my own comfort with calling someone a friend and, being called a friend in return. Because I had a lot of conflict, I felt, with this perception of what I thought friends meant, and the other person not agreeing with me and expecting me to take their point of view. And I was just confused by that because, again, I always think that, all points of view are equal, and it's a discussion about if you want to, compromise on the point of view when you're interacting with another person. So this is another thing I realized about my way of thinking. That's not how a lot of people think about the word compromise. So that's a different conversation though. Today we're focused on friends. So friendship, right? So how do you consider somebody a friend? Why would you think that it's okay to call somebody a friend? And what would you hope somebody that called you a friend, how would you hope that they would treat you? Right? And that's really what it came down to in my navigation of this question, because it was very clear to me for many years, right, in my, being now in my late 30s, I have had many years of navigating relationships and realizing that there was a disconnect in the intimacy that the other person felt, compared to the way that I felt. And that's another word, intimate, that has a lot of cultural baggage on it. Right? It's kind of loaded down nowadays. Intimate in our culture, especially in the United States, has a lot of um, tying in with sex, which is not at all really what I had always, considered it. Intimate to me, right, means you're close. It's the kind of the closest relationship that you can have. And to me, friendships and intimacy were sort of synonyms in a lot of ways. And realized, right, over the years that that's not true for everybody. Some people treat friend as acquaintance. And I like that there's two words, acquaintance and friend, that we would be able to call each other if we used acquaintance more, but we don't. And that's another thing about language. I can have a perception of a word. I have this perception that friend and friendship means a certain amount of intimacy, a certain level of connection. If the culture that I'm in does not agree with that, it's going to be hard for me to feel comfortable expressing that view when everybody else feels that friend and acquaintance are synonyms. So this, and there we go. I don't know what's up. I'm going to have to figure that out. I'll figure that out. So, um, so yeah, the intimate versus acquaintance line seems to be where a lot of the conflict or a lot of the confusion around how or why you would call somebody a friend. And, you know, it came clear to me that it's really, I don't see the larger culture ever again, maybe, having very firm, having full, um, yeah, having full comfort in the definition of a word. The stream broke again and it distracted me. But basically, the future of this multicultural world, right? The internet age that we're in, the fact that I'm doing this stream and teaching this lesson to people from around the world shows that our individual personal, culture is going to constantly be in conversation with a larger culture. And little microcosms, little communities, right, have their own vocabulary. And people just instinctively begin to have an impression of a particular word, and because that's the way that their community kind of understands it. And when we don't have the understanding, right, that we have to kind of have a little bit of an interpretation translation exercise, sometimes with people who speak the same language as us, just don't have the same definition of the same word. That's where we come to a lot of this confusion. And honestly, feels like, like the source of comedy for most of the 20th century, right? Like it, I was always very like confused about sitcoms and like those shows that would make whole dramatic, um, what is it? Whole dramatic situations out of a misunderstanding, right? Just because two people didn't want to like clarify what they meant about something. And I did not understand that. It was so confusing to me. And then I realized that's how most people worked. Like, implication is the way that most people communicated. And it just, wow. That's wow. That's some that's some kind of communication system you got there. Well, I was thinking that that was not for me. That's so when I entered the world, right? I pushed back a lot on that. And over the years, because the culture at large has gotten a lot more amorphous, a lot more multicultural, a lot more just different, but diverse. We see and speak to each other in from around the world every day. The idea that we need to become clearer about how we define words is a lot more important. And I think it's a lot more understood, right? People aren't as frustrated or surprised when they have to clarify themselves. Versus in the past, it might have seemed rude that you would ask somebody what they meant. Again, I do not understand why it's rude to clarify something, but cultures are all very different. And I don't have to understand a culture to know that that was the culture. Um, so, what does this bring me back to? Well, it brings me back to the word friend, friendship. That's the word of the day, kind of. Well, I mean, it's the word that I was focusing on today. And my journey to calling somebody friend, right? That I kind of started this whole conversation about is somebody I thought would decide that they were excited, that they wanted to be my kind of friend, right? I need certain level of reciprocation in relationships. And that sounds kind of like logical, you think? Of course, you need a reciprocal relationship. Again, though, what does it mean to have a reciprocal relationship for those two people? For me, in order to be a friend, right, there has to be a certain amount of contact from the other person in order for me to be considered somebody they care about and want to spend time with. Other people don't have that same level of expectation. They are the person who reaches out a lot and they don't mind that necessarily. The reciprocation is based on the individual's, you know, amount of kind of need for the other person. So that's sort of that it's a tricky question in a way, right? How do you know somebody is your friend? Well, for me, it's when they know what I mean by friend and they want to be called that by me and they want me to call them that, right? If we can mutually call each other friend and both understand what that means to us, then we're friends. Um, and that's a lot, that's very complicated for some people. For some people, it's just, again, like, oh, I know you. We've hung out a bunch. We're friends. Yeah, aren't we friends? And see, for me, my brain would be like, well, we're friendly, right? We're friendly acquaintances, um, friendly coworkers, right? Yeah, but there's a certain level of intimacy that I equate with friend, and I feel uncomfortable calling someone that until I've sort of had that conversation, right? It is, to me, entering in a certain, kind of relationship, right? All relationships are friendships to me, like friendships. And if you're not friends with your partner or your husband or your wife or whoever, like that again is very strange to me. You do you. People have all kinds of relationships. I'm just saying, for me, I have to be friends with everybody that I'm like intimate with. And, you know, that way. Yeah. Relationship way, all that. So that is my little chat about friendship. And I think it gives you a good idea also about where we're going to go in the next year on this channel. So one of the things that I, talked about a lot today was clarification. And one of the videos that I've been working on in the background is all about the word of the next decade, maybe century. in my opinion. And pretty soon, you'll see a video about that word. And I hope that you tell me your thoughts on whether, you have these complicated kind of ideas around friendship, or is there a word that you feel you kind of have a different understanding of than the people around you? Okay, we're back. Goodness, so frustrating. It's so interesting to see how these, shared totems, shared icons, these words have such individual meaning amongst us all, and we sort of just kind of like agree that they mean something. So, welcome to uh, a year of word exploration. I would love to hear your comments below, or you can send me a message, email in the description box. Well, I'm going to say that that's all the linguistics you can use for this week. I hope that I gave you some feelings to explore on the subject of friendship and friends and all of that. Now, I hope that your journey through language in the next week is a fun time as you craft some sound meaning. See you later.